everything about my Egypt Cruise the Nile trip with EF Ultimate Break. I want to go over the itinerary, everything we did, what I packed, what I wish I would have packed, and everything I wish I would have known. I am an EF Ultimate Break ambassador, just a disclaimer. This isn't sponsored though, they don't pay me, all my opinions are my own, but I do have my link down below if you want to get $100 off your first trip. If you clicked on this video, you probably already know what EF Ultimate Break is, but just in case you don't, a little quick summary. EF Ultimate Break is a group travel company. It's for anybody ages 18 to 35. They offer payment plans, which is super helpful because they're interest-free payment plans, so you can pay monthly instead of having to put down all that money at once. You can either go by yourself or with a friend. Egypt was my third trip that I've done with them. I've gone solo on all 3 of my trips and come out of it having made new friends on the trip. You can either have them book your flight for you, which is included in the cost, or you can have a discounted price for booking your own flights. Aside from that, the price includes your hotel, a lot of your activities, a tour director you have with you the whole time to answer any questions, and some of your meals. A big thing is they cover the transportation for you everywhere. You have a nice tour bus. If you were traveling without a group, I really don't know how you would get around, except for maybe just hoping for the best with taxis, but I feel like you would get scammed really easily that way. There's so many different cities you're visiting, everything's pretty spread out. There's not really much within walking distance or like public transportation, so that's a big reason it's super helpful to have the group. One of the reasons I love EF so much is I feel like it makes places that you wouldn't necessarily travel on your own or be too intimidated to travel to on your own a lot more accessible. Personally, I would have never planned a trip to Egypt by myself. I mean, I'm sure I could have done it, but to me that was just way too intimidating of a thing to do. So Egypt wasn't ever necessarily on my bucket list. Like, I thought it'd be a cool place to go one day, but it wasn't like really on my radar because I didn't want to put that much effort in. But then when I saw all these good reviews of the EF Ultimate Break trip, I started thinking a lot more about it. Now, I feel like Egypt has a reputation of being unsafe. I personally did not feel unsafe at any point in the trip. That's not to say if you go that you won't feel unsafe either, but I think it's because we had our tour director with us the whole time, so we knew everywhere we were going was safe. And our tour director was local. He was Egyptian. He spoke perfect English and perfect Arabic, which was super helpful. Now, this is something they don't do on other EF trips, but in addition to our tour guide, we also had an armed guard with us the whole time. I honestly went into this trip really blindly. I barely even looked over the itinerary because I thought it was kind of fun because I'm usually that type A friend that has to plan everything and has to note on her phone and is organizing everything, but I thought it was so fun to just sit back and barely know what I was getting into each day because they were handling everything. Now, to go over the itinerary, the trip was 10 days. Basically, 2 of those were full travel days because we had a long flight to get there and then an overnight flight to get back home. I opted to have EF book my flights this time. Usually I do recommend you getting your flights yourself because you can save some money that way and then you can pick the times and the airline and everything that works best for you. But yes, EF booked my flights for this one, but it was cool because there were about 5 of us that had the same layover in Austria on the way. So I got to meet up with some of my group before we even arrived in Egypt. We flew into Cairo and then it was about an hour ride to get to our hotel in Giza. Here's something important to note. You do need a visa to get to Egypt. I had never traveled anywhere that required a visa before. And there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can either get it in advance online for, I believe it was $55, or you can get it at the airport for $25. I got mine in advance because I just couldn't stand the idea of getting somewhere that required a visa and not physically having it. Like, I was thinking, what if it gets denied somehow and then I'm just like at the Egyptian border? It doesn't work that way though. It's honestly just a tax that they collect. They have a line when you get there and you literally just hand over $25 and they hand you the visa. It's not something they're gonna deny you for. So I recommend getting it at the airport. Don't do it in advance and pay more money like I did, but I mean, either way will work. When we landed, EF had a representative waiting for us. He wasn't our tour guide, he was just another guy that they had sent over to the airport. So he met us before we even got to the customs line, so he was walking us through this whole visa process, making sure we got through the line okay. And then he waited with us until we got our car that was taking us to the hotel. And then he walked us to the car. So we were never having to figure anything out on our own or lost or anything like that. It was really comforting. We got to the hotel. I was absolutely exhausted. Not all of our group was even there yet, but those of us who were there had an included dinner at the hotel that they arranged for us, and it was really nice. To go over more of the itinerary, we spent 2 nights in Giza, then only 1 night in Aswan, 3 nights on a cruise, and then one more night in Cairo. The very first thing we did on the first full day was go to the pyramids, which was kind of cool because obviously that's the main thing everybody's looking forward to. They really are as impressive as you think they will be in person. We got to do a camel ride while we were there, which ended up being one of my favorite parts of the trip. We saw the Sphinx. We went to the famous Pizza Hut that has the rooftop view of the pyramids. Then we had a little bit of free time to go back to the hotel. That's one thing that honestly surprised me about this trip, was how much free time it had. And I liked that because it was like the perfect mix of being busy and having free time. The itinerary is pretty packed. You get to see everything, but then you also had at least an hour or so every day to just go back to the hotel room and nap if you needed to, relax. I actually got a massage at our hotel on that first day. I know a lot of people want to know about the hotels on this trip. They were so nice. I'll put in some of my footage I took of the hotels. That first one we were in Giza was kind of like this enclosed, almost village vibe. It was so pretty. They had that spa on site where I was able to get the massage. Breakfast was amazing. Then we went to Aswan, which I thought was even nicer than the first hotel, and the first hotel felt perfect. This hotel in Aswan had the prettiest view. Again, super nice rooms. This trip is an Ultimate Plus trip, so that means you only have one roommate the whole time. There's no hostels. We then had 3 nights on a cruise, which this surprised me, but it was actually my least favorite part of the trip. I'd never really been on a cruise before. The rooms were just really small. That's not something that usually bothers me, but like my suitcase was sticking out on this little holder it had. You had to kind of like shimmy past it because the room was so small. Our room didn't have any hot water, which apparently only happened to us, but that was disappointing. There weren't that many outlets. Like, it was just little things, so it wasn't terrible, but definitely not as nice as the hotels we stayed in. When we got back to Cairo, they had us in an airport hotel because all of our flights left like super early, so it was really convenient being right there. And that hotel was a lot more modern than the other ones we'd been in, so it was nice too. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that much about what there was to do there besides the pyramids, but we went to about 5 different temples, I believe. We did a hot air balloon ride, which was another one of my highlights of the trip. We got to visit the Nubian village. It was really cool learning about their culture. We visited the mosque of Muhammad Ali, and aside from our big cruise boat, there were a lot of little boat rides as well. Now, things you should be prepared for. Like I said, I never felt unsafe during the trip. That might not be your experience, but it was mine. While I didn't feel unsafe, I did feel very harassed the whole time. Honestly, you're just constantly getting catcalled. It probably didn't help that we were with the group, so we stuck out, but then also with the group, you have the tour director who can kind of tell them off if they're getting too pushy, so it kind of balances out. I had been warned about the haggling culture over there, but it completely exceeded my expectations. I've been to countries where haggling is a thing and you have to like argue about the prices. They'll say a souvenir is $5 and you're like, no, can you do 3? And they're like, oh, okay, how about 4? Like that kind of thing. It's not like that. They are pushy. They are aggressive. They will run after you. Just as you're walking down the street, they'll be cutting in front of you with the group, like pushing products in your face. I'll have to put in some of the videos I took of them doing it because it really is just bizarre.
$1.
I thought it was really sad, but you can't necessarily talk to a lot of the locals. That sounds bad, but even if somebody comes up to you and they're just saying like, oh, good morning, you can't really engage back because they're all trying to sell you something or scam you. That's not just me saying that, that was our tour director too. Because the times that we did fall for that, then they're just trying to exchange their money with us or push whatever product they had on us. Even like the workers on our cruise were doing that, which is another reason why that part of the trip I thought was less enjoyable than the others, but it wasn't bad. We went to this big market in Cairo where they had just a ton of souvenirs and stuff, and our tour director kind of put us all in a circle at the beginning and gave us the guidelines for it. He said, okay, from here to here, you're totally fine. Don't go past this point. Don't go down any alleys. And we're like, okay. He's like, meet back up with us at this time. So we all go out to get our souvenirs and whatever. Everybody's just yelling at you as you're walking, harassing you, whatever. We're used to it at this point. I wanted to buy one of the little tacky pyramid thing. I'll show you. I set out to buy something like this. I just wanted a little pyramid for my shelf over there. So I saw one I liked from this little table outside. I asked the guy how much, told him I wanted to buy it. He says, oh, no, you don't want that one. I have more right here. And he's trying to pull me into this alley by his shop. And I'm like, no, I want this one. I don't need to see more. No, I have more over here. Come see, come see. I'm like, no, here's my money right here. Take it. And he just would not stop arguing with me to come into this alley with him. So I said no, and I walked away, and then he's yelling after me. Then I go into another vendor, same thing. I'm just trying to buy my little pyramid. I ended up getting that one that I just showed you. And I'm like going to pay, and he's like, oh no, but this one's part of a 3-piece set. You need this one and this one. I said, no, I just want the one. Can I just have the one? And he's like, okay. Then he starts wrapping it up for me and pushing these other products in there so that he can charge me more. And I'm like, no, just want the one. And he's arguing with me again. I'm finally about to just walk out. And finally, I just had to kind of grab it from him and hand him my money. But I've never felt like that anywhere else where you're fighting for your life over these souvenirs. At one of the temples we went to, our tour director gave us about 10 minutes to look around and have some free time. And another thing I wanted was a magnet. So I walked into their little gift shop to get a magnet, because at least that is one tip I have. If you want to get souvenirs, you can do it at the more official places like that, because then they at least usually have the prices written down and you're not having to haggle back and forth. So that takes one step out of the process at least. But anyway, I go into the store to get this magnet, and the shop owner immediately comes over and he's like, oh, hello, like you should smile more. Are you smiling? Are you having a good day? And I'm just kind of looking at him, not saying anything, and that just egged him on, where he kept coming after me. I'm like, nope, just want to buy this magnet. I take it up to the register, and he was still just harassing me the whole time. And then this other guy came up, and I could see him like taking pictures of me. So I don't know, again, not unsafe, just uncomfortable. And it is sad because you want to get to know some of the locals on your trip and make small talk with them, but even your tour director will tell you, you just can't do that there. When it comes to money, they use the Egyptian pound. It's 30 Egyptian pounds per US dollar. Most places take US dollars, which is interesting. I never really seen that before. A lot of places will want your US dollars, and you do need cash for a lot of things. I had kind of a little bit of trouble finding ATMs that would work. Our tour director was so nice, he had this whole stack of cash that he just kept letting us borrow, which saved us a few times when we didn't have our own cash. But yeah, maybe bring some of your own cash from home and then get some Egyptian pounds out from an ATM once you get there. I wouldn't bother exchanging Egyptian pounds before you get there. I just think that's a waste. And then there were some places that took card as well, which I always try to use if I can. Aside from the trip price, I went back and added everything up. I paid a total of $518.55 over the whole 10 days. I think that's pretty good, especially because almost 200 of that was on jewelry that I didn't need, but that's besides the point. I have the whole price breakdown here that I'll insert. But this trip came with a lot of your meals. I'd never had that on a trip before, so that was nice. I only had to pay $120 out of pocket for food and my drinks. Most of that honestly was probably my drinks. And that total included our tip for the tour director too. I was surprised though, a lot of things in Egypt were more expensive than I expected them to be. It's not necessarily that expensive, but it's just like the same price you would pay in the US or sometimes more, and I expected everything to just be super cheap as far as like food and drink, that kind of thing. Very important thing to note, don't drink the water, don't drink anything that has ice in it. I was scared I was gonna get sick at some point during this trip, and I actually didn't somehow, but I was very careful about not drinking the water. EF did provide us with water bottles every day though, which was really convenient, so we didn't have to just keep buying them. And again, of course, your tour director's there to answer any questions you have about if something's safe to eat or drink or not. I recommend you pack comfortable shoes, some of the long flowy pants like you see people wearing, long skirts. I was cold a lot of the time because we went in January to February and it said it was going to be in the 60s about every day, so I thought that sounded like it would be nice, but it was actually really cold because we were on the water a lot of the time and there was a lot of wind. So if you happen to be going around the same time of year as I did, I would bring some more layers than I did. The dress code isn't super conservative. The only time we actually really had to be covered up was when we went to the mosque, but again, you are kind of already getting harassed and catcalled the whole time, so it makes you kind of want to cover up a little bit more, but it's up to you. I usually don't wear sandals, but I did bring a pair of sandals and I was glad I had them for on the cruise, but the rest of the time I just wore my Air Force Ones like I wear on every other trip. The only thing I really regretted not packing was conditioner. That sounds weird, but usually I just use the little bottles in the hotel because I feel like I don't use that much. But for some reason, every hotel we went to didn't have conditioner. They only had shampoo and body wash, and I couldn't even find any to buy, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but I'd had to go without for like a week. Then I also wish I would have packed more layers, but again, that's only if you're going in the winter like I did. And when I went to the pyramids, I wish I would have packed tissues in my purse because it's so dusty out there. I was sneezing the whole whole time. So I actually had to borrow tissues from our tour director because he brought some. For outlets, I would get a universal adapter instead of a specific one. I always recommend doing that anyway, so you don't have to buy specific ones for every country you go to. I'll put my Amazon link down there because I'll show you the one that I have. But I actually saw 2 different types of outlets while we were there. It wasn't just one specific one. There were some that looked like the ones like you'd see in the UK, and then others looked like the ones you'd see in Ireland, depending on which hotel you were at. If you want to see more of what I packed specifically, I did make a video on my TikTok about it. I'll put that in my bio as well because I post a lot more over there. But that's about all the tips I have. This was a really amazing trip. We had an amazing group, amazing tour director. The itinerary was great. Everything was so fun. Even the parts like the cruise that I'm saying I didn't like as much as the others were still great. It's just everything else was so amazing. I highly recommend this trip. I don't recommend going to Egypt without a tour group. I think it would be very difficult to execute, especially with the transportation. Again, just a reminder, I do have my link down below if you want to book through my link and get $100 off of your first trip. If you have any more questions I didn't go over, please comment those below and I will try to get to you. Yes, love this company, loved this trip, and I hope you get to experience it yourself.